People told me that Vancouver was a lot more laid back than other cities, and I always kind of figured, like, what does that mean? What could that possibly mean? It's a city. It's a big city. I just kind of figured that was a meaningless thing. But it feels like a laid back city. It feels like everybody's living in Toronto. Everybody feels like they're in a hurry. Everything is kind of moving really quickly all the time. It feels more crowded. Vancouver definitely does have just kind of a feeling of just kind of living slowly and more relaxed. I don't know if it's being this close to the ocean or the mountains or what it is, but yeah, it feels like a different rhythm.
Here we have a lot of social groups and movements that are happening around Vancouver, but I feel people should be more aware of what's happening around the world, because we're on the West Coast, we're on the furthest side of the world, so I feel if people became more aware of what's happening outside, maybe North America, that would be great, to be more involved in the movements that are happening. But other than that, I think people in Vancouver have it figured out.
Times have changed. But I don't know, you used to just say hello to people and people would smile. I do that here a lot and I get blank, like I'm invisible. I have to stop sometimes and think, am I really here? Yeah.
It's changed in the past 30 years, 40 years that I know. Well, when I first came here, it was different. It was friendlier. And then it changed in the last 25 years. People are afraid to speak to each other. They're afraid of each other.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because people don't know how to communicate properly. They're afraid to talk. They're afraid to express their feelings properly. And I think a lot of people are misinformed about different cultures.
We in this country, rich country, and the people sleep on the street. They never used to be. Chinatown was the best town. You look at now, so many homeless. Hey Jane, what do you think?
I agree that the people shouldn't be sitting on the street. They should build housing for that. They should be looked after and they should be sitting on the street.
No.
I know piles of people sitting on the street.
What do you call the downtown?
Skid Row.
Skid Row. Used to be the best town. We used to shop there. Woodward's there. Never seen anybody in the street. You look at now. They should be taken care of.
It's the worst Skid Row in Canada,
Shouldn't be,
the worst
no.
Skid Row in Canada.
I have nothing against bringing other people from other country because I'm Fijian. But look after your people first, little bit.
It's Vancouver. What really more can you say? It's either you're in Vancouver and you're up here, or you're kind of down here in the minority trying to make it up here.
What do you do for work?
I work in the downtown east side. I'm an occupational therapist, but no one knows that it is. So basically, I work with people that have mental illness and addictions, just trying to help them get through day to day.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
2 years.
So what has that experience been like?
Amazing. The downtown east side has its own life. It's its own ecosystem of community. People are resilient survivors. Someone told me once that it's like a grand Russian novel. Everything is so bold, from sorrow to despair to pleasure and ecstasy and everything between it. And who wouldn't want to be part of that?
It's changed, in my opinion, for the better. It was on the tail end of the 90s and early 2000s when it was still a bit of a scary place around here. And it's just improved, gotten better and better. And the Mount Pleasant Business Improvement Association is really passionate about the community. They had last year had the inaugural mural festival. Oh, I love it. Why not beautify this amazing city, right?
You know what? It's a good city. People surprise me all the time. In the sense that, a lot of people, especially in transit, they've got the headphones in, they've got their phones, they're kind of off in their own little world, right? But it always surprises me that people can sort of have humanity towards others. Even if it's as simple as, helping a little old lady move her shopping stroller onto the bus for her. Or, I've had people come on and say they can't pay and have somebody come from the back of the bus, fish change out of their pocket, put it in the fare box for somebody so they could get a bus ride, right? So that's something that surprises me, that for a big city we can still have a little bit of humanity, right? So, yeah.
Well, the East Coast, or Newfoundland in particular, is much more isolated, so it's inward looking. People are extremely friendly, they're wonderful people, but they're inward looking. And I think on the coast here, on the northwest coast, people have a broader viewpoint, or at least they're confronted with more with different kinds of people. I mean, the cultural mix is much greater.
Positivity. Since I came over here, like my first 2 weeks here, the sun shone for the full 2 weeks, but then it's rained since then, and I don't think that if I didn't see the first 2 weeks, I would have cracked and I would have went home already. It's just been grey since I got here, apart from the first 2 weeks. So I just try and think positive, think about that sun coming back, and that's about it.
To stay here, since I've traveled around, it's hard for me to find a place called home. So I'm sticking here. I'm trying to stay here as much as possible, and make this place my home, to get to know every single corner and back alley and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Vancouver seems to have always been a service industry for Hollywood, which kind of makes sense. And as a result, I think up until like the Olympics in 2010, I think on a world scale, Vancouver was underknown and probably accidentally misinterpreted for Vancouver, Washington all the time. So I think, which is crazy, I've lived here my whole life, I think this is a beautiful city that should be used. I know some filmmakers, Dennis Hopper shot a movie called Out of the Blue, I think in the 60s, that actually was shot in Vancouver and was about Vancouver a little bit. You really have to like dig up films to find them. There's a few, and I think some are great. But I think the main sort of obvious reason is people want to make stories that take place in New York and LA because they seem more vital and more important to the world stage. And I think Vancouver is going to slowly become an important city over the next several decades. But as a whole, it's really just like the most beautiful city I think Canada has to offer. One of the most beautiful. I don't know why. It's a great question, and I have a terrible answer for it. I think it really comes back to the service thing, to money, like following the money and why they're here, and often to do pickups or like other random parts that they're also shooting in LA or they're trying to match for other cities, and I see that a lot. I love like the opening of The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger when it's supposed to be in California and they're shooting in like the library downtown and they blow it up in the first 5 minutes. There's like some fun games you can play picking all the different locations, but wow.
Well, any of those movies that are shot here are American films, so we usually play Seattle or Los Angeles if it's American production. That doesn't work the way for Canadian films, but I don't know how many people go to see Canadian films, so I see Vancouver often playing Vancouver, but usually in a Canadian production. If it's America, if it's the States, well, they want to do something that plays for them. I mean, I guess part of the issue for me, or part of the problem, is that 95% of the work that I do in film and television is for American television. It's not Canadian. I mean, I'd love to work more for Canadian, but we just don't have the same, it's hard, it's hard living next to a lion and being a little mouse. The markets are American, so that tends to be what sells. I wish it weren't so. I encourage everyone to watch more Canadian television.